So with the Rascal Does Not Dream series in its current state of the story and the trends that we've seen throughout the series as well, we know that adolescent syndrome has been a huge focal point for these characters. We know that adolescent syndrome is when abnormal or supernatural experiences happen to these characters or these people during adolescence caused by instability or sensitivity in some fashion. Whether these characters are facing some sort of internal conflict or external conflict, facing their fears, coming to terms with reality, or trying to adjust back to normal life. We've seen multiple different supernatural occurrences stemming from adolescent syndrome, such as characters fading out of existence, time looping, body splitting, body swapping, even being able to go to the past in a different timeline and redo certain events. I didn't even get to name them all, and with all of these occurring and happening so frequently, it almost becomes commonplace. It becomes expected for us because it happens so frequently, when in the beginning of the story, it was explained as these events being urban legend. It wasn't really something that was the norm. It wasn't something that they really considered real. So what if I told you that these supernatural occurrences with adolescent syndrome were not just happening by accident? It wasn't just happening out of nowhere or spawning onto these characters out of nowhere when they're going through their instability or sensitivity issues. What if I told you that it was somebody in particular, a person in some fashion, maybe a supernatural or like a mythical person in some fashion, that was placing these supernatural occurrences onto these characters because of their instability and sensitivity issues with their adolescence problems. And this is where Toko Kirishima comes into play. So if anybody's read volume 8 or further in the light novels, you know that Toko Kirishima is a mysterious character, somebody that I want to learn more about very badly, because it's very interesting of the little plot threads that they're kind of building here and putting together with Toko Kirishima. At the very end of light novel volume 8, The Rascal Does Not Dream of a Sister Venturing Out, we hear from Shoko that she's able to remember all of the different timelines that she's lived through, and then in every single one of those timelines, Toko Kirishima is the outlier. She was not involved in any of those other timelines. Toko Kirishima, she had never heard about in any of those timelines, but in this current one, she hears about her and she's some sort of like famous, mysterious kind of person that is a very great singer. We don't get to hear too much of Toko Kirishima in volume 9, but in volume 10, once the time skip happens and these characters are now in university and we're dealing with Uzuki Hirokawa's adolescent syndrome in this arc, at the very end of this light novel, once we're wrapping up things for Uzuki's arc, she's in a better spot now, feeling a lot better, and dealt with her adolescent syndrome, and she ends up leaving at this point. Sakata ends up running into somebody, and somebody says a certain line, and that is Toko Kirishima. She finally interacts with Sakata in some way, and Sakata's kind of freaking out, and I was freaking out in this moment because of something that she said specifically. So once Uzuki left, she said, "Ah, such a shame," and after I let her read the room. Uzuki was known for not being able to read the room, and at the end of this adolescent syndrome arc for her, she was able to read the room, and now that Toko Kirishima is saying that she was the one that let her read the room, it heavily implies that she was the one that caused for this potential adolescent syndrome to be, bestowed upon her, and she was dealing with all these issues and stuff, and with all of these supernatural things occurring to these people or to her in some fashion. And what if she is the sole cause of what's happening with all of these characters that are going through these problems or these adolescent syndrome supernatural occurrences? These characters are going through instability and sensitivity, or just their conflicts, whatever it be, internal or external in some way, that's happening on their own. But the supernatural part of it that comes with these characters fading out of existence or body splitting, body swapping, stuff like that, she could potentially be the cause, and it's very heavily implied that she is the cause, or she's the person bestowing those supernatural things to happen to these characters because of these things happening. I'm not sure if she's doing it as a good thing and she has good intentions behind it, and at the end of the day, it might be a good thing because these characters have to face their fears or face this conflict that they have going on, or internal kind of conflict or instability or whatever it may be, and get over that or try to resolve it in some way. And this supernatural thing that's happening to them kind of pushes them to do that. But on the other hand, if Toko Kirishima is responsible for bestowing these supernatural events to happen to these characters with adolescent syndrome, it can cause for some very, very serious trauma on top of everything else that they have going on with them, such as the characters that had the fading out of existence problem, like Sakata in Volume 9, or Mai Sakurajima in the first arc. It can be a very anxiety-driven and terrifying thing that happens that they might not know how to deal with at some point, or might not know how to deal with at first when they first get into that situation. Like Sakata didn't even know what was going on, and he had to kind of figure out what was happening or figure out his feelings in some sort of way to find out what was going on or why this was happening to him. So if she's the cause of these adolescent syndrome situations, it could be a good thing because it's pushing these characters to face their conflicts and not run away from them, not avoid them in some sort of way. But on the other hand, it can be very traumatic, such as Kaide's situation where she's just kind of getting bruised up everywhere once she kind of feels some sort of emotion, being scared or feeling insecure or whatever it may be, because she thinks that people are talking about her in some way or judging her in some sort of way, like she was being judged back in school or whatever it may be, or any of the other adolescent syndrome situations that did pop up. And now that we're getting some sort of conversation about this, the core of adolescent syndrome and what might potentially be causing adolescent syndrome, this is very much so end game level stuff. So kind of coming to the core, or the kind of pinpointing who is causing adolescent syndrome and what are they going to do about it. This is not a natural event, a natural occurrence that's supposed to be happening. It could possibly be, like I said, where Toko Kirishima is bestowing this supernatural occurrence to happen to these people, and it's not necessarily a good thing for these people. It might be causing them some trauma, like I was talking about before, and Sakta might not take too lightly to that sort of thing happening, and it's been a pain point for him because he wants to live a normal life and not have to deal with adolescent syndrome everywhere that he turns, whether it be with him or some of his friends or other people that he ends up running in with or reuniting with after a while, like Ikumi Akagi or something along those lines. But like I said, it seems to not be a natural occurrence. Therefore, Sakata might have to take matters into his own hands and try to figure out what might need to be done to kind of deal with Toko Kirishima in some sort of way, or deal with adolescent syndrome in some way. Therefore, having to deal with Toko Kirishima because she's most likely the reason why these things are happening to these people. But who is Toko Kirishima? Is she an actual person that lives, in all timelines or whatever, like Shoko meant, where she knew a lot of these people, but the one person that she didn't know or didn't hear of or whatever was Toko Kirishima? Did Toko Kirishima actually exist in all these other timelines and she was just a normal person? Or is she some sort of supernatural, mythical kind of person? I'm assuming it's kind of along those lines and pointing towards that, because she's able to bestow supernatural events onto certain people. So how did this happen? What is going to happen with her? How difficult is it going to be with Sakata potentially dealing with her if that ends up happening? And when Toko Kirishima gave that line, pretty much saying that she was the cause for Uzuki Hirokawa's adolescent syndrome, at this point, Sakata was the only person able to see Toko Kirishima, so it would make sense if maybe she's some sort of like supernatural or mythical being in some sort of way. Heck, she's even wearing the whole Santa outfit, and we see Santa in this world or whatever that we live in as some sort of mythical person that people make up that bestows gifts upon people on Christmas. He travels around the entire world in one night with flying reindeer and stuff. So maybe it can be that sort of situation where she is wearing the Santa outfit for a reason, because kind of representing some sort of mythical person or some sort of person that they make up in some sort of way that has powers in some sort of way. But it could even be a different sort of scenario like Sakata or Mai's, where they like faded out of existence and nobody was able to see them, and at some point somebody was able to find them and somebody was able to see them, at least in Sakata's situation, where nobody at all was able to see him until Mai found him, and she was the only person at that time that was able to see him until he resolved the rest of his adolescent syndrome sort of situation with his mother. Maybe that's the situation for Toko Kirishima, and she faded out of existence and now she has these supernatural crazy powers or something like that, and she's not some sort of like supernatural or mythical being in some sort of way. She was just a normal person that just happened to be in this sort of position, or somehow got to be in this sort of position where she's able to do these sorts of things. Another strange thing about this was that Toko Kirishima already knew who Sakata was at this point. How did she know him? Had she seen him before? Had she met Sakata in some other fashion that Sakata just can't remember at this time? But if you really think about it, and the theory holds up to be true that she is the one that's causing for these supernatural adolescent syndrome occurrences to be happening to these characters, it makes total sense for her to know who Sakata is, because he's been so involved and been so attached to a lot of the adolescent syndrome occurrences that have been happening to a lot of these girls that he's been around with Mai Sakurajima, with Koga, Kaide, you name it, any of these characters, he's just been near all of these people, and even he himself has been dealing with adolescent syndrome things too, like in Volume 9. If he's been involved in all these sorts of ways, and she is the one, Toko Kirishima is the one that is causing for these adolescent syndrome issues to be happening to these characters, then she's going to know about him because he's always around these adolescent syndrome problems. Or maybe it's because she had to directly bestow adolescent syndrome onto him himself because he had to go through it too in Volume 9. Or maybe it's something a little bit different. Maybe it's something more deep than that. Maybe Sakata is something special in some sort of way, and maybe Toko Kirishima like handpicked him in particular to be able to kind of help everybody out that is going through these adolescent syndrome problems. Because they've said it before, it seems like Sakata is kind of like a magnet to adolescent syndrome problems. So it's all of his friends and all these other people that are kind of related to his friends, or just people that he hasn't seen in so long. Example being Ikumi Akagi, that, like I said, he hadn't seen in forever, and now she's at the same university as him, and now she's going through this adolescent syndrome stuff as well in Volume 11. But like I said, he is a magnet to a lot of this adolescent syndrome stuff, and he somehow just ends up getting dragged into it. And maybe that's not a coincidence. Maybe Toko Kirishima or something else in some sort of way is dragging him into it, or putting him into these situations, bringing these people that are having these problems to Sakata in some sort of way, and they have faith in him possibly to handle it and be able to help these girls resolve their adolescent syndrome issues. And him being this potential hand-picked special person, who better than him to be the one to stop adolescent syndrome, or to be the one that resolves adolescent syndrome as a whole and makes it kind of cease to exist in this world and things kind of go back to normal. And us entering the end game of the Rascal Does Not Dream series was then confirmed to be the truth, because very shortly after, like a week or two after I read Volume 10 and had all these thoughts in my mind about us being in the end game of the series, we got confirmation that they are going to be entering the final arc of the Rascal Does Not Dream series, which is crazy, but we're touching on some of these things, and that was definitely related to Toko Kirishima because we got confirmation of us entering the final arc of the Rascal Does Not Dream series in Volume 13 that focuses on Toko Kirishima. So she is very, very important, and I definitely can't wait to read all the stuff relating to Toko Kirishima once we get a translated version of that into English for Volume 13. Can't wait for it. That's the character that I've been most excited about. But there's another thing with Toko Kirishima that I think might have to do with Shichirigahama Beach, because I believe that Shichirigahama Beach is a very, very special place in particular in the Rascal Does Not Dream world, because there's so many things that do happen at Shichirigahama Beach and that tie things together. So many different things always just somehow just happen there, or these characters just get brought to Shichirigahama Beach all the time. I don't think it was a coincidence that every main girl character that had an adolescent syndrome issue was walking down Shichirigahama Beach at the ending theme for the Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai anime. I think that it is a very important place, and like I said, maybe it has some sort of ties with Toko Kirishima. Maybe it's some sort of special place to Toko Kirishima in some sort of way, and she was like deliberately making these characters go there, or kind of having some sort of situations kind of that she was construing or something like that, making it to where they had to go to that certain place or something along those lines. I just think that it's uncanny that so many different things happen there, and that maybe, like I said, it's tied to her in some sort of way. Maybe it's some sort of special place to her, or maybe it's not. Maybe I'm just going crazy or whatever, but that's just some of my thoughts on the matter with the end of the Rascal Does Not Dream series, potential with Toko Kirishima and things that are tied together with her, finding out the potential truths and core stuff that has to do with adolescent syndrome. That is a huge plot point in this story for the Rascal Does Not Dream series, Shichirigahama Beach, what's in store for us in the future for this story. I don't know, maybe some of this stuff gets confirmed in the future. I haven't heard too much on stuff for volume 13 as of right now, and maybe that stuff got confirmed already. I still need to read volume 11 to find out maybe if they gave us some little more inklings as to what the truths are, and maybe it confirms some of my theories or whatever. But that's all I really wanted to talk about in this video today, theorizing on some of this stuff and kind of talking about the future of the story. And yeah, some exciting things upcoming, because maybe some people just really didn't think about it in that way for Adolescence Syndrome, because like I said, it just happens so frequent and it just kind of seemed like such a normal occurrence to happen within the story for these characters, that maybe you just didn't think that somebody was maybe manipulating it in some way or kind of causing for these Adolescent Syndrome problems, supernatural things to be happening to these characters, and you thought it was just like the world or just some random thing happening to them once they had that instability and stuff happen with them. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. I hope you all have a great rest of the day, and make sure to subscribe if you guys have not already, if you guys want to see more Rascal Does Not Dream things, and make sure to hit that notification bell as well to get notified for whenever I do upload a video, go live, or do anything like that. And I hope you all have a fantastic rest of the day, and I will catch you all later. See ya.